Rube, this is the first podcast in a while where we don't have like important news to talk about.
Yeah, just wait 2 hours.
That's a very good point. You guys may never hear this podcast. We might have to scrap it the second we're done. But in case you are hearing it, this is the Eagle Eye Podcast. He's Reuben Frank. I'm Dave Zangaro. I kind of like these pods. They come a little bit after the news where we can really kind of dissect it all and figure out what happened and what it means for the team going forward. So owners meetings are next week in Phoenix. I'll be down there for that. So we'll get into some of the topics that might come up then. I want to take a look at some of these low risk signings the Eagles have made, try to figure out which ones we think might work out and which ones probably won't. Slay and Bradberry contract details are in. We'll go over that a little bit. We want to talk about the Eagles' needs as they now kind of push toward the draft. But Rube, let's take one quick look back at the free agency loss. And we knew they were going to lose a significant amount of guys. Which do you think was the biggest loss for them?
Yeah, I think you could go a few different ways on this. CJ is probably the most obvious one, but I really think TJ Edwards is a guy whose value is really underrated around here. And he's going to be hard to replace. And he's not the flashiest guy. He didn't have a bunch of sacks or interceptions, but he's just so solid. He's improved so much, and in coverage, I think he kind of made himself a better athlete, got better shape, faster. Gradually over the years, he has since he was undrafted out of Wisconsin, and he was really solid this past year. I thought he was really, really consistent. Terrific tackler, delivered some big hits, rarely out of position. Just a really solid, consistent, physical, smart guy. Obviously, the green dot. He was the conduit with the DC. You missed that, but it's not even the same DC. So who knows? He might be thinking in a different direction anyway. But big loss. And the fact that it happened 15 minutes into the legal tampering period tells you that he had a number in mind. He saw it, he took it, and I'm sure he'll be happy out there in Chicago. But it's a significant loss, and especially because when you look at the losses, who do they have in that spot? And we think Nakobe Dean can play. We think he'll be a good player. He should be, but hasn't played, and there's not a whole lot there. And we'll talk about who they added and Nicholas Morrow, but not a lot of guys you can count on at that spot. There's some potential, some youth, but I think they'll miss him.
Yeah, he's a fair one. We talked about this on a previous pod, though. The fact that he went to his hometown team so quickly makes me think that was always the plan for him. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe the Eagles could have found a number that would have brought him back. But I also think that's not the Eagles' style to overpay for a linebacker. He's not the top one. I understand what you're saying there because you're looking like, what do they have there? The two that they're obvious ones, but Javon Hargrave and CJ Gardner-Johnson. Now, the Hargrave one, I think probably does hurt the most just because he was the best player that they lost, but it doesn't hurt because we kind of knew there was a really good chance he was going to be gone. And then he was. $21 million a year will do that. But the CJ one to me, and I feel like we've talked about CJ so much that we don't need to spend a ton of time on it, but that was one that you see the contract and you go, how did this blow up? And it's not just on the Eagles. It's obviously both sides couldn't get together and figure this out. But man, you talk about the linebacker cover being bare. Safety right now is, if they had to play a game tomorrow and they don't, luckily, but it would be Reed Blankenship and Kayvon Wallace out there, maybe Justin Evans. Like, that's not great.
We know more about Reed than we know about Nakobe.
That's true, but I guess. But Nakobe was a third-round pick, and Nakobe played in the national championship defense, and he was a key cog in that defense. I understand what you're saying. Like, we have at least a baseline with Reed, but God, they're probably weaker at safety right now. And we'll get into this in a minute when we rank their needs, but I just look at that and I think, man, you could have had C.J. Gardner-Johnson back here, and the fact that it didn't happen is like maybe there were egos involved. Maybe one side walked away, the other side. Well, we don't really know the full extent of what happened. We may never truly know what went down, but it's disappointing because I think I've said this before. I think both sides would have really benefited from him being back here.
Yeah, and I think you make a good point. I think both sides have some degree of fault, and I know at least on social media it's been blaming CJ's agent, but I do think the Eagles have some role in it. And like you said, we don't know exactly what the numbers were, and more importantly, what the structure of the numbers were. But it would seem to me he's a player that you would make a little more effort to keep. But again, we also don't know exactly how high CJ's number was when this whole thing started. So it could have been a deal where Howie just said, you know what, we're not even in the same universe, so we're moving on. And once you move on, like you said, they don't come back, although they did in Slay's case. But he was under contract, so it's a little different. But yeah, I think it's a mistake to just blame CJ and his agent. I think there's enough blame to go around.
Yeah, and I mean, I see a lot of people giving Howie credit and the Eagles front office credit for reading the market correctly, which sure they did. They read the market correctly, but they lost the player, which like, what does it matter in a way? Like you read the market well, but the player isn't playing here anymore. He's a guy that we heard they were prioritizing. So, it's just a shame. It's not sad. It's not like someone died here, but it is a little, it's disappointing. I think for both sides that they didn't figure that out.
Yeah, no question. And you mentioned too, so I'm going to throw in Miles as well, just because it was we kind of knew it was coming, and he's not the player that. I mean, his impact is unusual because when you look at the numbers, almost 1,300 yards, 11 touchdowns, Pro Bowl. I mean, he had a really, really good year. I do think he's replaceable, but I also think there's a tendency to kind of forget just how good he was for most of the year. And it's not a slam dunk that the guys that they've assembled, and I still think they'll add someone, will be able to replace him. Because, you do the math and you're like, well, if you add up the numbers, they kind of equal what Miles did. But it's hard to do that because you don't know that it'll add up that way. And Miles has been a really consistent player when he's been healthy. He doesn't have a lot of bad games. He hasn't had a bad season. So he's had injured seasons, but kind of an underrated loss. I think we all kind of knew he was gone. So it was kind of, there was no shock value. There was no surprise value, but you lose, that's 1,300 yards and 11 touchdowns they lost. And, I think you made the point the other day, like Gainwell he had one huge game in the playoffs. He had a couple really big games late in the season, but he's not a proven player. I mean, we don't know. I think he's really talented, but the number of impressive games that he's had in his career is very low. And Penny, with the injuries, obviously, is a guy you can't count on. Very talented. I think that's an underrated loss as well.
That's fair. Yeah, my point with Kenny was as much as people forget what Miles did earlier in the year, they forget that Gainwell's season was before the playoffs. That matters too. I don't know how you balance it out when you're trying to figure it out, and the money plays a big role when Miles gets a significant contract, a good contract, good for him. I think that plays a role, but yeah, he was productive for a lot of that year, most of the year.
Yeah. And it could be just Howie doesn't want to give a running back a second contract. They don't do that very often.
Yeah. And I kind of agree with that philosophy. I don't know if Miles, they'll do it for a special player. Like Shady was a special player. I don't know if Miles is special. He's good.
Yeah, and how many other running backs have they given second contracts to? I mean, Westbrook and Shady.
Who are both special players.
Yeah. Yeah. Before that, Deuce. I mean, you're talking about three guys in 20 years. So, 25 years. So yeah, it's rare, and it makes sense.
Yeah. All right. So we wanted to look now after look, free agency is not over. It doesn't end. Um, so the Eagles can still add, and we expect that maybe they will at one or two spots. But let's take a look at their needs right now. We've done this independently. We each ranked their top 5 needs, right? You have your list in front of you.
I have my list in front of me.
Do you want to go from 5 to 1? We'll really build the suspense here. Let people just sit on the edge of their seats.
Let's do it.
All right, we'll start with 5. Which position do you have at 5? I hope they're not the same.
I hope they are the same. I don't feel as dumb. Number 5 is punter.
That's fair. I didn't include punter, but you certainly could do that. Aaron Siposs had moments this year where he looked okay. Super Bowl was a bad
Talk
punt.
about damning with faint praise. He had moments where he looked okay. It's fair.
Yeah, well, look, I thought he struck the ball much better this year than he did the previous year. I mean, but the punt in the Super Bowl was unfortunate. He was better than Brett Kern. That's something.
Yeah, he was better than Brett Kern. But
I'll be honest, I thought it was kind of surprising that they just ran it back with Siposs in 2022.
yeah, and he was better, but he also had more punt return yards against him on one punt than Brett Kern had all year. I like that stat. That's my punter stat for the day. Yeah, he did improve, and I give him that. But
that's one thing you can say about Brett Kern. He didn't give a lot of opportunity for guys to return those 20-yard punts.
Yeah. And look, at that point in the season, there's not a whole lot of options, but yeah, I expected a little more from him. But yeah, that's my number 5 need, and I think it's a big one. And you saw, I'm big on field position, and you saw in the games where Siposs was really good. When he did a lot better on inside the 20s and reducing his touchbacks. And when you can do that with the defense they had, you're gonna be really tough to beat. But I mean, I think we'll all remember Siposs's last punt. And so to me, that's number 5.
Gut feeling, though, I think he's their punter in 23.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's most likely.
Yeah. And they're not going to spend on a punter. They're not in that situation. They want. I mean, a few years ago, they wanted to keep Cam Johnston, and they're like, well, we're not in a position to overspend on punter.
And now he's one of the best in the league. He was one of the best in the league when he was here.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he had an incredible year last year. I mean, he's really, really good.
He is good. Yeah. My number 5 is running back. We just mentioned it. I think they could maybe get by with what they have. The Rashad Penny thing, like, I'm a big fan of Rashad Penny. I don't know how to factor him into this equation because he's missed so much time. And if it was one injury, you go, I think you can get over that injury and play, but it's been so many different things. And at a certain point, you are what you are. Now it would be great for the Eagles. It'd be a heck of a boost if he ends up being healthy and plays the way he's played when he has been on the field in Seattle, but you can't rely on it. I thought Gainwell was great in the playoffs, but
he was great in one game.
I thought he had a good playoff, so overall.
I mean, overall his numbers were good, but I mean, he was under 4 against the Niners and under 4 against the Chiefs. Granted, the Niners have a great run defense, but he had a great game against the Giants, and yeah, they didn't run the ball at all. They didn't run the ball well with any of those guys against the Chiefs, which is kind of probably an underreported thing. They relied so heavily on the run, and they were not a good run defense, and they just never got it going, and that really hurt them.
Yeah. And then after that, we both like Boston, but somewhat limited. Trey Sermon, we just don't know. So a lot of question marks at running back, and I think they could still add there.
Yeah.
You want me to go with my number 4?
Sure.
I'm going to go receiver. I don't think it's like a glaring need, and I'm higher on Quez Watkins than you are, and we'll talk about him in a moment. But they lost Zach Pascal, and right now, I mean, they don't have a 5th receiver. Well, they do, but they don't have a 4th receiver because Covey's probably the 5. He's probably, you can pencil him in as the the punt returner, but you might be able to move on from him. We'll figure that out with whoever they get in the draft or after the draft. But and you can replace Zach Pascal, but you're not going to spend money on that spot. And the guys after, the top three, you're talking about Britton Covey, Greg Ward, Tyree Cleveland, and Devin Allen.
Not a whole lot there. I mean, Greg Ward's the one proven guy. But yeah, it's definitely slim pickings after the first two.
What do you have for?
I have running back at 4.
Okay.
So we're kind of in the same ballpark there. I've been thinking a lot about Quez, and we'll talk about him. But
you want to talk about him now? Want to just do it?
Sure. Dave's not off the script, so I appreciate this.
Yeah, well, I mean, why save him? We're here. Let's talk about Quez. It's an interesting discussion with Quez this year. I think he's a fine number 3. And I know that he had moments last year where he hurt them. No question. The fumble, the drops, they were bad plays. But I also think it's going to be hard to find a player who can give you the type of production with limited snaps that he can, given his deep ball ability and a guy who doesn't need to be fed the rock a ton.
Yeah, I don't know what just happened. It got really dark in here. Yeah, I've kind of come around a little bit. I was doing some digging on Quez, and I've always been big on, bear with me here, on giving guys another chance when they have a bad year, bad game, bad rep, whatever it is. And it would be hypocritical of me to say don't give Quez another chance based on some really bad plays. He still has, I think, the fifth most I have it here somewhere, the 5th most 50-yard catches in football over the last 2 years, behind Jamar Chase, Debo, Tyreek Hill, Cooper Kupp, and Tyler Lockett. So that's some pretty good company. And he's got a skill. He's got a trait that you just don't see in very many guys. And he's shown in the past that he can track up deep ball, and he can catch it, and he can make plays. So just because he didn't in a few key situations, including the biggest one of his life, yeah, it's bad, but it's not like he's never done it. It's not like he's never made those plays. He has made those plays. He's made them in big situations. So I kind of softened on Quez a little bit, and I don't know where you're going to find a guy. He's got 1,000 yards the last 2 seasons as a 3. I don't know where you're going to find that elsewhere. So I like that he was accountable after the season. He didn't. He was one of the few guys that talked in locker cleanout day, that's not a huge thing, but I appreciate that he was accountable, that he owned up to his deficiencies and his fumbles and drops. We all saw him. He stood there at his locker and talked, answered every question about him, and said he's determined to come back better. And I think he deserves that shot.
Okay, interesting. I like that you've come around a little bit. I look at him and I just think having some explosion out of that position is a little rare. Like, it's not completely rare. There are guys who do it. And I even think that he's probably a better outside receiver than he is in the slot. He's done more of that in his career. But there are moments where the Eagles will slide AJ or really Devontae a lot this past season into the slot. But we saw, and this is not a shot at Greg Ward, we saw how kind of boring it can be when you just have a possession receiver as the slot guy. I like the idea of having some explosion and a guy that can change a game with 3 targets a game. And I don't think there are a lot of those guys out there. Now, what I will say is, I don't think having Quez Watkins on the roster should prevent them from, say, in the draft, taking a player who they think could help them. Because then Quez, it would be, I think you could probably trade Quez and clear, I think it's like $2.7 million in cap space with a trade, because he got a little pay bump for performance. So I think that's a possibility, but I wouldn't like trade Quez to trade Quez. I think he's still a valuable player.
Yeah. Yeah, I come around a little bit. So, yeah, once
It
in a
is
while.
tough after you watch him drop a pass, like a huge pass in the Super Bowl, to be like, yeah, run it back with that guy. I think it's like the knee jerk reaction is they got to get better. But the other part of it is like you have two top tier receivers who want the football. One of them who's very vocal about wanting the football, and I worry a little bit about another mouth to feed.
It's fair.
Yeah. Okay, where are we? Number 3 now?
Yeah.
You want to give me your number 3?
Yeah, I went just an interior lineman who can get some pressure, can rush the quarterback a little bit.
Me too. I have defensive tackle.
Yeah.
Yeah, because right now, I mean, they lost Javon Hargrave, so they bring back Fletcher Cox, which we thought was a possibility there, that maybe they would lose Javon and then pivot and bring back Fletcher Cox, and that's what they did. Then they have Jordan Davis. We kind of anticipate will be at the nose tackle position. Milton Williams will be the other starter at the other defensive tackle spot. But then it gets a little light in terms of the backups. You have Marvin Wilson, who comes back, Marlon Tuipulotu, who's coming off an injury. It kind of dips down pretty quickly. And I think it would make a lot of sense for the Eagles to use one of those high draft picks, go out and get a defensive tackle who can contribute immediately, because there's just not a lot else there. Noah Ellis, who I liked coming out of Idaho, didn't really play at all with the Eagles. He went on IR, and then I guess not IR. He went on a non-football injury and missed the entire season. You're bringing him back, but obviously nothing you can rely on there. So having a player who could add to the rotation, give them some depth behind the starters, would make a lot of sense.
Those guys are hard to find, and that's why Fletcher's here. They just it's not easy to find those kind of guys, and if you're not paying big money, well, it's a skill that everyone wants, that interior. That's why Hargrave got so much money. So it's not easy to find, but they could use it.
Yeah, and even like at edge, at least they have BG as the third guy. Whatever you think of Derek Barnett, and we don't know what he's going to be coming back from the knee injury, you still have him. You have Patrick Johnson, who's shown a little something here and there. Defensive tackle, like after the starters, it's a pretty steep drop off.
Yeah, I would expect to see some activity there. I wouldn't be surprised if he drafts another one. I mean,
there are some decent ones.
Yeah, and
even a backup for Jordan Davis, I think, is something that should be a priority, because he had Linval Joseph. Even when like the end of the season, like Linval was a starter, but Jordan was playing more than him. But Jordan still isn't taking all the reps at that nose tackle spot, and we'll see what the scheme dictates too in terms of position breakdowns. But like, I don't feel great with Marlon Tuipulotu being the backup nose.
Well, you shouldn't, and I'd be surprised. He played a lot of snaps. I was looking at that. He was playing way too many snaps early in the year.
Oh, Marlon,
yeah. He's not that good. So yeah, they could certainly use some help, and I do think there's a chance we'll see one of those two veteran guys at some point, but it's not going to be the first half of the year. So, and we don't know. They might, Linval and Sue might be, I'm done. Had a great run, went to a Super Bowl. Sue especially, I mean, he's 36, I think. Mm-hmm. Definitely an area of concern, even though I like Jordan Davis, and I think he's got a little bit of a bum rap since the season ended. He wasn't the same when he came back from that injury, but he wasn't awful, and
he got better as he got further away from it.
He did, and I thought before he got hurt, I thought he was giving him some good reps. He would show up, and again, I think because he's not a guy that's going to get a bunch of sacks. Some people maybe misjudge how well he's playing, but I think he's pretty solid. And I think he's going to make a big jump in year 2. I think he'll be okay.
They would like that. That would help quite a bit.
They sure would. All right, we're down to the top 2. I have a feeling we might be on the same page here.
I think we're going to have the same 2 positions. I don't know if we'll have the same order. What do you have at number 2?
I have safety at number 2.
Okay, we're flipped there. I have linebacker at number 2. There was a little foreshadowing from our earlier discussion. I figured we would be flipped there.
That's right.
Clearly the top two spots of need, and I don't think they're done it either.
Yeah, I would agree. And I only put safety second just because I've seen Reed. I think he's going to be a anywhere from a good to a very good starter at safety. I really like his game. I really like how he plays. He's another guy who just surprised he was undrafted, but yeah, I mean, obviously they don't have a whole lot else, and you don't really know. I mean, he's still a question mark. Kayvon, I just can't imagine a scenario where they rely on him to be a full-time starter. I just don't see that happening. He did make some big plays in a few key spots, but as far as going out there and playing 55, 65 snaps, I just don't see that happening. So, Howie got one guy, got a veteran in here, and we'll see what else happens. It's a position they just never draft. The last safety the Eagles drafted in the first 3 rounds, I guess, was Jaquan Jarrett.
Yeah.
Did not go well.
Yeah, I mean, Eric Rowe was a corner when they drafted him. So.
He was a corner when they drafted him, yeah. I can't believe he's still in the league.
He carved out a nice career.
He has. He's got like 6 career interceptions. That's like, but anyway, it's beside the point. A little surprised Jalen Mills wasn't in the conversation at all. He went back and signed with the Patriots.
You don't know that. He got a nice deal from the Patriots.
Yeah, he did. Well, yeah, he could have been in the conversation, but he did. But yeah, it's a position that's it's a little scary, and it's not as scary because you do have Slay and Bradberry back. So it's not like you're rebuilding the entire secondary. Because there was a point where we don't know if they'd have either one of those back. So I think it's not, and that's another reason I put it second to linebacker, because you don't have to do a complete overhaul of the secondary. But there's some work to do there.
I don't know if that should factor into the position being of need.
Well, it's a holistic look at the defense.
Okay. So the reason I put safety at 1 and linebacker at 2 is because I can foresee an instance where Nakobe Dean and Nicholas Morrow are your starters in week 1. Might not be ideal, but I think that's a real possibility. At safety, I don't think there's a very good shot that it's Reed and Kayvon in week 1.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
I think there's another addition coming.
What about Reed and Justin Evans?
Yeah, I mean, no.
So, I mean,
and I don't think like Morrow's. Look, he didn't play very well. He was durable. He was durable and versatile. But the Bears also paid 2 free agent linebackers for a reason.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I don't have. Well, we'll talk about that, but I don't have great expectations for either one of them. But yeah, the reason I put linebacker first was I just don't know about any of those guys. I just don't know about any of those guys, and I expect Nakobe to play well. I was a little surprised he didn't make more of an impact on special teams. He wasn't bad, but I don't think he really flashed a whole lot, as much as I thought he might in that role. He embraced it. He worked hard at it. He enjoyed it. He took a lot of pride in it. It's something he had done in college, but I didn't see the athleticism that you expected. I didn't really see a lot of that on teams. Okay.
Yes, maybe that matters, but
maybe it doesn't. I don't know. I just like there's only so much we have to go on.
Yeah.
And so,
the one thing with Nakobe, and I'd love to ask Jonathan Gannon this with some truth serum, because I always thought they were going to carve out a role for Nakobe in this defense. Like, I understood that TJ Edwards and Kaiser played well in training camp and they earned the starting spots. That was totally fair and understood. And maybe it was just a philosophical thing. Like, Gannon just doesn't want to run 3 linebacker anything. But I thought they could have used a 3 linebacker set. And the only time we saw Nakobe on the field was like when someone came off or a few goal line snaps where they just wanted some extra bodies in the middle of the field. I thought like when they were really struggling with their run defense and their only answer was throwing Jordan Davis out there at the nose and playing like that, I always wondered like, could there be a role for Nakobe? And I don't know.
Well, I think we kind of learned how Gannon feels about Kaiser. Where did Kaiser sign, right? I thought there were times during the year where Kaiser was not playing well in the middle of the season, and I would have liked to see Nakobe get a shot. Never happened. So it's certainly I would have liked to have seen it.
Okay, I got something interesting here for you.
What do you got, Dave?
This is not like breaking news that we need to like stop the presses here, but Adam Schefter reporting Cowboys Ezekiel Elliott, which he's no longer a Cowboy, right? Former Cowboy. Get that edit button going, Adam. Has narrowed down his options about where to play to the Eagles, Jets, and Bengals, and would like to make his decision about where to sign by the end of the week. Zeke?
That would surprise me.
It would or wouldn't?
It would. I wouldn't expect Howie to go that way. Older running backs. I'm not sure Zeke is a shot fighter, but he seemed awfully close most of the time last year.
He's 27, but man, his legs have got to be 45.
Yeah, maybe Howie's thinking behind this O-line, although Dallas had a pretty good O-line. Look, Schefter, there's nobody who's more on top of these things, but that would surprise me.
Yeah. And it just says like his options. Right. I can say my 3 ladies that I'd like to date are Margot Robbie, Angelina Jolie, and whoever. That doesn't mean that they're interested. We'll see. I don't know what what he would cost. Like it couldn't be much.
No, to even be on that list, it couldn't be much.
Yeah. So you would go into a season with Zeke, theoretically, to go into a season with Zeke, Rashad Penny, Kenny Gainwell, and Boston Scott?
Yeah, I'd rather see what Trey Sermon can give you. But
Zeke last year, have his numbers in front of me, 14 starts, 15 games, still 231 rushing attempts. They ran the heck out of him. 876 yards, so that's 3.8, the lowest of his career. 12 touchdowns still, so maybe they're thinking goal line back, Zeke? Frustrate the heck out of fantasy owners?
What was numbers the year before?
Year before, Zeke in 17 games, 17 starts, 237 carries for 1,002 yards, 10 touchdowns, average of 4.2. He hasn't been above 4.2 since 2019. That was a 4-5 year. So in the 3 years, 2020, 21, 22, the last 3 years, 4.0, 4.2, 3.8.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to happen. Be surprised if it happens, but
used to be a heck of a threat out of the backfield.
Yeah, he was a really good receiver. Maybe they'll just make him a receiving back. Never run him. Make him Keith Byers late in his career.
Man, it'd be fascinating. I don't know if that's if he's like super cheap and you're like try to come get a ring, Zeke, but like I don't know.
Yeah, there's no Cowboy has ever come to the Eagles and played well. Never, not one.
Don't forget about that Jets game.
Yeah, he had one good game. And then remember we were all gathered around the TV and
talk about Orlando Scandrick.
We were all gathered around the TV, scribbling down and recording what he was saying. And then Malcolm just went off on him. And then the Eagles
have bleepity bleeps like that in the building.
Eagles social media found that. Remember that sideline mic'd up of Scandrick telling Malcolm what a great leader he was.
Yeah,
tremendous.
And Scandrick's on TV just ripping him for clout.
Yeah. Well,
What a
Chris
clown.
Colonial. I mean, I'm trying to think of who was the running back from the Cowboys. They signed Felix Jones.
Oh, I thought you were going to say DeMarco, but yeah.
Marco didn't go well.
Yeah.
Miles Austin.
Yeah. It's never worked.
Yeah, never. Not once. Not once that I know of. But anyway, interesting. I mean, we said earlier we both kind of anticipate them adding a running back, but that's not the direction I was thinking.
Yeah.
We'll see what
me
happens.
neither. Catch all the sports action and more at Rivers Casino Philadelphia. Whether it's the money line or the pass line, there's something for everyone in the great sports book. Rivers Casino Philadelphia. Philly loves a winner. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Yeah, I was not expecting to see any Zeke Elliott news linked to the Eagles. That's pretty surprising.
It is, but we'll see how much veracity there is to that soon.
Ooh, you learned a new word.
From you.
Thank you. Slay and Bradberry. We don't have to get too deep into this. If you want to read all the nitty gritty of the contracts, I have a piece up on our website now. But the important Cliff's notes here of this, basically, these are 2-year deals. There are third years that they could theoretically be here, but they're structured in a way where the Eagles have outs after these first 2 years. And I think that's important, especially when you're talking about cornerbacks in their 30s. And structure of these contracts, very similar, very minimal cap hits, especially for Bradberry in these first 2 years. Slays are a little bigger because he had previous prorated money, but they structure these deals in ways that make sense and that won't like seriously prevent them from having those burdens on them in the next couple seasons.
Yeah, and I think it's a good way to do it. They're fair deals for the players and they're safe deal for the Eagles, so it works out. Yeah. They're very Howie type contracts. Yeah,
they are, and basically, the Slay contract was a 3-year, $42 million deal. They could basically get out of it after 2 years and 23-ish million. And the Bradberry deal is basically 2 for 18, possibly 2 for 20. That was reported as 3 for 38, which is like the full value of what it could be. But at the very least, like it's hard to see either of these guys playing out the full contracts as is.
Right. Next year's going to be a really interesting year for Slay. After this was not his best year, not his best finish. So I'm really curious to see. I'm glad he's back. He's a good player. Really curious to see where he goes at 32 in the next season.
All right. We promised you guys we would look at some of these low risk signings and figure out which ones we think might work, which ones won't work. And in this list, I guess we'll talk about Rashad Penny, Greedy Williams, Justin Evans, and Nick Moreau. Do you want to throw Mariota in there? He's kind of in a different category as a clearly defined backup.
Yeah, I wouldn't put him in that. I mean, because we know he's going to be here. He's got a roster spot. It's a little different.
Of those other guys, which do you feel like has a roster spot locked up and who could be a real contributor?
Well, I was going to say Rashad Penny until we just saw they might be bringing in a veteran running back who one thing Zeke does is he does stay healthy. But, I would say
to his detriment in a way.
Yeah. He never gets a break. Yeah, you're sore. You won't give you 27 carries. I would say Penny because his body of work beyond like all these guys have something that keeps their value down and makes them big question marks. But we've seen him play at the highest level. I mean, he's had 350-yard games. He's got the fourth highest career rushing average by a running back with 300 more carries. So we've seen that he can play at a really high level when he's healthy. It's just being healthy is such a big problem for him. But I would say he's got the highest upside just because he's the one guy that we know can be as good as anyone when he's healthy.
I like that. I like the way you put that like all these guys have reasons they were available and cheap. His reason is just health because as a player, he's pretty good. And the other ones, like, yes, Morrow missed the 2021 season. He played every snap last year, and he was available for what we haven't seen the numbers. We assume is a very cheap deal. Evans missed 3 seasons, but even he was healthy last year and didn't really find the field. Greedy Williams, I feel comfortable saying will be on this team as a backup, but as long as those guys stay healthy ahead of him, he's not going to play. And I think Zach McPherson is going to compete with him for that third job. If Rashad Penny looks good in training camp, he's going to play.
Yeah. And I think he's the one guy you can say that about. Evans and Morrow, the question, I mean, they've missed time, but like you said, they both were healthy. So the missed time isn't really an issue. Their level of play is. They're guys who play positions that we just both agreed were the 2 biggest positions of need. You bring them in, you take a look and see what they have. Greedy, even if he's okay, isn't going to be a starter. But Penny's the one guy who I think has a chance to really make a significant impact.
We agree on that one. That's good. We haven't agreed in a while.
Yeah, we didn't even agree on it. I was getting ripped for my Red Delicious apple choice. I was getting killed for that. But not for the way I slice them. So people
it's
like
not the best apple. It's just not the best apple.
That wasn't the question. It was what's my favorite apple?
Yeah.
I like a Red Delicious.
That is true. We shouldn't rip you for your favorite. Your favorite can be whatever you want it to be for different reasons. Maybe you like the glossy, waxy finish of a Red Delicious apple.
You know what's funny is like somebody asked me on Twitter the other night, like, what are your 5 favorite albums of all time? So I put 5 albums down that are probably my 5 favorite of all time. And people are like, what about this? What about this? Like, it's not your list. It's my list. It's like, well, what about, London Calling? Well, it's your list. It's not one of my, like, this is my list. Why would you?
It's funny that we do that with some things and other things. Like, I ask you what your favorite color is. What's your favorite color?
London Calling.
Like you say green, and no one goes, what about blue? Like, no one does that,
I don't know if I have a favorite color, really.
Okay. I mean, you're just ruining this bit.
Red and black. Actually, red and black, just because it's Ohio Wesleyan colors. I think
those are 2 colors.
Yeah, but my one favorite color, I don't think I have one favorite color.
Okay.
Maybe when I was 7, I was at purple.
Yeah, it always would change. Whatever Power Ranger was my favorite, that was my favorite color, I think. Did I ever tell you my Power Rangers Halloween story? My mom sews a little bit, so when I was a kid, she made me this Green Ranger costume, and it took her forever, like, because it had like this like golds like slippery material that was really hard to sew. And then, like, I don't know, a few weeks before Halloween, Power Rangers introduced the White Ranger. And I don't really remember the actual storyline, but I think the Green Ranger like turned into the White Ranger or something like that. So
I thought you said Night Ranger. I was getting excited.
No, White Ranger.
One of my 5 favorite bands.
So then I asked my mom, like, can I be the White Ranger? And I don't think I've ever gotten a death stare. I remember this as like, 7-year-old. Just death stare from my mom. I was the Green Ranger, and I was happy about it.
And the White Ranger was not happening.
Yeah, I still wear that Green Ranger costume right now.
Dave wore it to the Nick Morrow presser.
Maybe I'll wear it to the owners' meetings next week. I'll be down in Arizona again. 3rd trip in 6 months for me to Arizona. I live there now. If you see
my Amex card, I lost it at the Super Bowl week.
I'm shocked by that.
So if you're downtown, over by the convention center, see if you can.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Oh, that sucks.
I'm used to it.
You're used to it.
Amex is used to it. Amex actually has my own dedicated 800 number when I lose it.
I believe that.
Hi, Mr. Frank. We'll get another one out to you. Same
owners meetings. There's a lot to talk about. So typically the way this works down there is Jeffrey Lurie talks, Howie Roseman talks, Nick Sirianni talks. And it's really the only time where you get these 3 guys in a couple day span. And normally it's like a little more rare for Jeffrey to speak. He just spoke at the Super Bowl and after the NFC Championship game. But whenever the owner talks, like, it's worth listening.
Yeah. I mean, in the last 5 years, he's probably spoken like 5 times. So it was an embarrassment of riches in February, or January and February. But it's a great opportunity, and you kind of, because like even the combine, you're still kind of wrapping up the season and looking back a little bit, but now kind of looking forward. And it's the first time we'll talk to Nick since some of these coaching moves, and Howie since some of these. I mean, since CJ certainly, and a lot of all the free agency stuff. So yeah, it's going to be a really interesting couple days out there. I'm looking forward to hearing them.
Yeah, the Howie one is interesting. He probably won't be able to tell us exactly what happened with CJ. We might have to do a little detective work trying to figure out and read between the lines. But I mean, that's fascinating to me, like how that came together, how Slay ended up back on the team after they decided to cut him. So yeah, I think there are things to ask these guys for sure.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
You got anything else here?
No.
Okay. We'll wrap this up. If you enjoy the Eagle Eye podcast, please rate and subscribe wherever you get your pods. If you're watching on YouTube, please click the like button and subscribe there as well. That's it. We'll talk to you next week. For Reuben, I'm Dave. This has been Eagle Eye.